Have you ever found yourself standing at life's crossroads, feeling like an imposter waiting to be unmasked? That voice whispering doubts about your every step and decision can feel overwhelmingly loud in a world that demands confidence from all of us constantly. But what if I told you the walls built by self-doubt are not as solid or impenetrable as they seem, and that within them lies the blueprint for genuine transformation? This is where our journey together begins. In every video on this channel, we will take one of the invisible barriers that holds people back and dismantle it piece by piece, using real psychological tools that have helped real people. We release 2 new videos every week, and we begin today with self-doubt, because for most of us, it is the first and most persistent wall. By the end of this video, you will have 5 practical tools, one to carry into each part of your day, and they start working tonight. In our journey to conquer self-doubt, we start by understanding what it actually is, because most of us are fighting something we have never clearly defined. Self-doubt is not a character flaw or a sign of weakness. It is a pattern of thinking that your mind learned, often very early in life, as a form of protection. If I doubt myself before someone else can doubt me, the logic goes, I cannot be hurt by it. The mind intends it as armor. What it becomes is a cage. Think about the last time you hesitated before sending an email you had already written, or talked yourself out of raising your hand in a meeting, or spent 3 days preparing for a conversation that took 3 minutes. That was not incompetence. That was self-doubt doing what it was designed to do, keeping you small to keep you safe. The problem is that safety and growth cannot occupy the same space. Every time self-doubt wins, it gets a little stronger. Every time you act despite it, you do too. Recognizing this distinction, that self-doubt is a learned pattern, not a fixed truth about who you are, is the first crack in the wall. You stand at a crossroads and your mind floods with what if and I can't possibly. These are not revelations about your limits. They are familiar grooves the mind returns to out of habit. And habits, unlike character, can be changed. Here's your first practical step. Tonight, sit with a piece of paper, not a screen, and write down 3 statements that are simply and factually true about a time you succeeded, helped someone, or pushed through difficulty. Not affirmations you wish were true, evidence you already have. 3 sentences. That is all. Read them before you sleep. What you are doing is giving your mind a competing narrative, one grounded in reality rather than fear. The mind that learned to doubt can learn to trust. It just needs different material to work with. Once we understand that self-doubt is a thinking pattern, we can look at the specific distortions that keep it running. The 2 most common are catastrophizing and black and white thinking. Catastrophizing is when the mind takes a single setback and fast forwards to the worst possible outcome. One critical comment at work becomes you losing your job, which becomes you losing everything. Black and white thinking strips away nuance entirely. Either this presentation goes perfectly, or I am a failure. Either I am the best at what I do, or I am worthless. Neither extreme reflects reality, but they feel completely real when you are inside them. What makes these distortions so effective is that they feel like clear thinking. When you are catastrophizing, it does not feel like a distortion. It feels like realistic planning, like you are simply being honest about how things could go. That is what makes them so hard to catch. They wear the clothes of logic. The antidote is not positive thinking. Forcing yourself to think everything will be fine over a genuine fear does not work, and most people know it. The antidote is accurate thinking. When you catch yourself catastrophizing, the practice is to pause and ask one honest question. What is the most likely outcome here? Not the worst. Not the best, not the worst. The most probable, realistic middle ground. 9 times out of 10, the realistic outcome is somewhere between triumph and catastrophe. Manageable, recoverable, human. Your action for this week, the next time you feel a spiral beginning, that tightening in the chest, the what-ifs multiplying. Name what is happening out loud. Say the words, I am catastrophizing right now, or I am thinking in black and white. You do not need to fix the thought immediately. Naming it is enough to interrupt the pattern. The moment you observe a thought, you are no longer fully inside it. The fog does not disappear, but it loses some of its authority over you. Understanding our patterns is one thing. Changing them requires something more sustained. A daily practice of looking at what happened, what we felt, and what we can learn without judging ourselves in the process. This is where most self-help advice falls apart. It tells you to journal without telling you what to do with what you find. So let me be specific. 5 to 10 minutes with a notebook before you sleep. 3 questions only. First, where did self-doubt show up today? Second, what triggered it? A specific comment, a comparison, a moment of uncertainty. Third, what is one thing I handled today that I can acknowledge, however small? That is it. You are not trying to solve anything in those 10 minutes. You are creating a record. The point is to stop letting the day's doubts accumulate unexamined. When we do not look at our patterns, they grow in the dark. When we name them on paper, without judgment, only observation, they lose their power to ambush us the next morning. You cannot fight what you cannot see. This practice makes it visible. Over weeks, you will begin to see the same triggers returning. A particular colleague whose approval you crave. Situations where you are new and have no track record yet. Moments when someone compares you to someone else. That repetition is not discouraging. It is clarifying. You are not fighting a vague enemy anymore. You know exactly where to expect it, which means you can prepare rather than react. Building psychological resilience requires more than reviewing what went wrong. It requires training the mind to notice what is already right. And this is where a morning gratitude practice becomes not a soft add-on, but a genuine reset for how you enter each day. The research on this is consistent and has been replicated across dozens of studies. People who deliberately identify things they appreciate each day report lower anxiety, stronger self-esteem, and greater persistence when facing setbacks. The mechanism is straightforward. The human brain has a negativity bias. It is wired to register threats, problems, and gaps more strongly than positives. This was useful when the threats were predators. In modern life, it means self-doubt has a structural advantage. Gratitude practice does not eliminate the bias. It introduces a counterweight. But the timing matters more than most people realize. Before you reach for your phone in the morning, before the notifications and the comparisons and the demands of the day crowd in, pause for 60 seconds. Name 3 things you can genuinely appreciate. Not grand things, real ones. The coffee, the quiet before the house wakes up, a conversation yesterday that left you feeling understood. The smaller and more specific, the better, because it trains your attention to find the good that is actually present, rather than waiting for something remarkable to arrive. What you are doing in those 60 seconds is deciding, consciously, deliberately, what your mind will dwell on first today. Self-doubt will still show up, but it is walking into a room that was already occupied by something else. We have covered where self-doubt comes from, the distortions that feed it, and 3 daily practices to begin dismantling it. But I want to close with something that does not always make it into these conversations because it sounds too simple. The role of creative expression in rebuilding confidence from the inside out. When we are deep inside self-doubt, we live almost entirely in our heads, in analysis, in comparison, in the gap between who we are and who we think we should be. That mental loop is exhausting, and it is self-reinforcing. The more we think about whether we are capable, the less capable we feel. Creative expression breaks that loop in a way that thinking about breaking it never can. Whether that is painting, writing, playing music, cooking something new, woodworking, gardening, it does not matter what it is. What matters is that it pulls you into process rather than outcome, into doing rather than evaluating. When you are fully absorbed in making something, there is no room for the inner critic. Psychologists call this a flow state. I call it the one place self-doubt cannot follow you. Your final practice. Once a week, spend 30 uninterrupted minutes on something creative that has no audience and no grade. Tell no one about it. Do not photograph it. Nobody judges it, and neither do you. It does not have to be good. The only measure of success is that you made something that was not there before. That feeling, quiet, specific, entirely your own, is confidence being built from the inside out, not borrowed from someone else's approval, not contingent on a result. Yours. Self-doubt, does not disappear, but it changes shape when you stop running from it and start understanding it. The 5 tools we explored today, evidence-based writing, real-time reframing, evening reflection, morning gratitude, and a weekly creative practice, are not a cure. They are a direction. And every step in that direction is a step toward the version of you that was always possible. If this resonated with you, subscribe to this channel. Twice a week, we will take another barrier: fear of failure, perfectionism, the comparison trap, and do what we did today. Bring it into the light, understand it honestly, and give you something real to do with it. If someone in your life needs to hear this, share this video with them. And if it helped you today, a like means more than you know. It tells me to keep going, and it helps someone else who needs this find their way here.